This day 698. The Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. Like sponsor, come share the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi and more. Please call me directly. We very greatly appreciate it. Today we're doing Simon Tuf Lamed Vav, Sif Tes to Simon Tuf Lamed Zayin, Sif Base. Tes. V'zeu stam b'dika. V'yesh chametz yadua b'chonim b'chol levaro. All this story about where what you had in mind to when you had in mind to come back, not to come back. 30 days, not 30 days, is when you don't know there's chametz. You just have a b'dika. Aval yesh chametz yadua, there's no known chametz which you have. You have to eradicate it no matter what. Abraham says, according to Mishnah, the chametz which is known to you, you have to eradicate it before you leave. And it says, "Yesh mekilim fil chametz." I don't know what you mean by that. Anyway, below that, the chametz shnafel on playlist. It's not like a chametz upon which an avalanche is fallen. The avik mavur, which is as if it's eradicated. Does that mean that's where the avalanche fell? Below mediach Allah b'yadayik achdo tzar. Not where you put stuff on top of it, like in a warehouse. Because remember the previous sifra talked about a warehouse. So if you know there's chametz in the warehouse, so you put piles and piles of hay, bushels and bushels of hay on top of it. Too bad, you got to move it. It's not like an avalanche where it fell on its own. That's because you hit it deliberately. The zel kamat min lechatchila, it's as if you hit it there deliberately. We already wrote. The whole concept of Yotze Derech is not talking about chametz, which is known. Okay, the Rambam, we said it's about chametz, which is known, as he said in Sif Hey, and I guess if you're not going to be home Pesach, you rely on bittul, like we said. He says back, it says, this is not about chametz, which is known here. It's going to be Yotze Derech because of my chametz yadua. It says, so about chametz is known. The Gemara Dami Yotze Derech close to base of Otzer. The Gemara links the parallels to two cases. Ayin Sham and Tzarchim. You would have Rabbeinu Rambam the Otzer Chitim Sheish Chitim U'Kumatz Karkei Sabor. If you have a warehouse of wheat and there's fermented wheat at the bottom of the pit in which the wheat is being stored, in Nasel Otzer Shloshim Yom Pesach, if the stockpile is made more than 30 days for Pesach, you don't have to eradicate that chametz. About the believe without you nullify it, and that suffices. However, a lot of Pesach shemaf notes are after Pesach when you remove the stockpile. Also knows how do I benefit from those that wheat? There was no known chametz there, only that question. You could sell the entire oats, including the grain which is possibly fermented before Pesach or on Pesach. Those who argue on the Ramah, evidently. The chametz yadua harein is bar chonin chayav lidagu. It's no chametz. You have to check no matter what. But the bedin said yesh chashash chimutz bezehu tzaratzmon. Besides, in this situation, there's a possibility of fermentation in this stockpile itself. Doesn't matter if it's within 30 or before 30. Where the stockpile itself, such as where hair is straw. There's not relevant to have fermentation. But the whole question whether that which was underneath before the stockpile was there was we could ferment it. In that case, now you can distinguish between chametz, which you consider as if an avalanche fell upon it, where it's eradicated. And therefore, the stockpile of straw, which is there for 30 days, you might not necessarily have to eradicate it. But if in the stockpile itself there's the stockpile itself there's a concern for fermentation, it doesn't matter if it's before or after 30 days. There's no proof from the Ramah that he means to say that in this stockpile there is a concern of fermentation. You can't be bothered. That's the case. There's definitely no distinction between before 30 days and after 30 days. He put in good grain, where you're not concerned with fermentation. So therefore, the whatever grain was fermented was there beforehand, not part of this stockpile. That which allowed you to leave that chametz there, even if it's no chametz. Avogad chametz you do vaday osir. Even though minor chametz, it's certainly forbidden to deliberately leave it there. Zel lechatchila. But after the fact, in chashash to have a kamapolis, Rama holds that it's like an avalanche. V'yesh misham those say the gam lechatchila mutar. It's even deliberately allowed to leave there. Mutar afilu b'chametz so even it's no chametz. Time mapolis because it's like an avalanche. Time lam loich baslon. If it's before 30 days, we don't care. Yes, mani batel when the time comes, just nullify it. But kula say right. Arukh HaShulchan doesn't like this. It's too much of a kula. Shami bor lahedi b'chametz you do it so var gam shol kolim shloshim yom k'mos tavu tzifei. Now, if it's no chametz and it's not a real avalanche, so then you have to eradicate it even before 30 days. Mishnah Bura, because then we're going to have Avram says, if. All right, he seems to be lenient like the Chok Yaakov. Anyway, your base. Misha Miniach Chitim Tovim Babor Nikios who leaves good grain in a clean pit. The ain sham chashashim says no concern for fermentation. And then because of moisture, some of them did become chametz. Ain't so levar feel nasa tok lamed. You have to eradicate them, even if they became chametz within the 30 days. Since when you plan to put it, there's no chametz. And later on comes chametz. Have a enough of my playlist. It's like an avalanche fell upon it. In this case, regarded as an avalanche. Especially if there's a doubt if they fermented at all. Okay, I'm not sure. It means that it's a logic statement or a psychological statement or a custom, whatever. People don't remove their stockpiles. Mr. Brewer says that you should be available before Pesach. Shatzian says after Pesach. You should have Noah. It was Vade Chametz. If since you had in mind, after all, to move the stockpile after Pesach. Maybe Allah says some say you even have to move the stockpile and then take out the whatever's fermented and not do a Noah from it. You give him a custom, but a custom. You say about you saw you say base any Yehudi Toshloshim Yom, a Jew who leaves the house of a non-Jew, I guess who was renting there within 30 days of Yontif, next by his Achban, he goes to another house in the city, or Cheres is going to another city, and so the by he doesn't have to do B'dika or Bior in the house that he left. Shari Kaimitz is Bior Bosa by his Achban, it's going to fulfill the mitzvah Bior in the next house he goes to. I'm going to farish it to be Shayov, but if he's going out on a trip, either by sea or by caravan, he's not going to come to the house during Pesach. Those is Chalov Chavas Abir. Yes, eradicate the chametz came to Tok Shlosh Yom. This is within 30 days. We're talking about by Saint Yehudi. So even though he's leaving this house permanently, he's not coming back ever. But since he's not going to the new house, where he's going to have new chibdika, he's going to be on a trip. So therefore, he says chibdika on this house which he's leaving. So he has to check. So by saying Yehudi, Shotzimek, the kind of mitzvah beer, the more fill the mitzvah beer, Apish and Yehudi, you call us the by his Pesach, even though non-Jew's going to come home himself on Pesach. Ishmael those who say Shein Tzarek, she calls by Yehudi. Those who say he doesn't have to do it if the non-Jew's actually going to live there on Pesach. What we see in the first opinion is astonishing. Does the b'dika have to do with the body? It has to do with the house. But the Toshloshim Chal or B'tchavas Dika Zog Sheyesh Lam Aliv Dok. No, that's what he means. The Atu B'dika have a Chavas Aguf is a Chava upon you on the Gavra. It's not a Chava on the Gavra, he says. Well, the Toshloshim Chal or B'tchavas Dika that you have a Chib Dika within 30 days have it Zog Sheyesh Lam Aliv Dok. So when there's a Chefza, is what to check. In the case where the non-Jew is going to be there over Pesach, whatever chametz left there since you left permanently is going to be there. The non-Jews, what does he have to check? Well, furthermore, if that's the case, even if he's leaving permanently a Jew's house during the 30 days, that's kind of b'dika. That's kind of b'dika. The gavra. And in fact, rejects the first opinion on that account. Yudav yearly that Kohen Kenu. So Arukh HaShulchan wants to explain. This is the first opinion. If a non-Jew comes out before Pesach, it's a bdika. You don't have to check it. Because bit Pesach, when the non-Jew comes back on Pesach, until Pesach, the Jews' chametz is to be found there. But even though it's like hefker, the shame because you left there, you're not coming back. We come nevertheless. He has the obligation to check this house. But Pesach. Okay, it's not his rishus, but it's nobody else's rishus. Nobody's rishus, because all chametz is hefker on Pesach. Nevertheless, even though all chametz is nobody's rishus, it's a terribly dog. Torah said you gotta check. You have, and if not, you have or by raw. You're going to transgress by raw. Okay, no chinam here too. Nami he the lo yav or by raw. Okay, won't violate by raw. In hachanam, nevertheless lo kiyem mitzvahs bdika chemtzo. In fulfill the mitzvah checking for his chametz. Shram megiyah shori shor Pesach nikach chemtzoy. Even when the first hour of Pesach comes, it's called his chametz. If another Jew is entering this house, this chametz will be checked by the second Jew. Or Jew entering before Pesach, they're shame goyishkeit. I guess on the chametz. The Pesach comes out on Pesach. He's got to check. I'm sorry. As a Pesach, when the non-Jew will move to on Pesach itself, when Pesach begins, the chametz has a din Yiddishkeit, so therefore it has to be checked. It's got a place, another place we can check anyway. In other words, he's moving to another house before Pesach. We're not concerned with this. This is really lomdish. His shame can only remain there if nobody else, if his shame was not transferred somewhere else. And that includes if he's on a caravan or at sea, his shame hasn't transferred somewhere else. So there's still a residual shame of his on the first house. But where he both went into another house, he has a new his shame was transported with him. Okay. If nobody's going to enter the house, it's going to be open, uninhabited during Pesach. You only have to do biur if it's in 30 days of Pesach. The Mishnah Berurah says, Chok Yaakov says, no, even if nobody's in there, you're still not mechuyev. The Mishnah Berurah says, if a non-Jew enters, then he can be meko, which is evidently what Arukh HaShulchan has been saying as well. If he enters before Pesach. Test Vav. Nachon shekol amid yom kohen Pesach. It's probably 4 or 3 days for Pesach. He has a davar yashgir shlo yishloshim chametz davar shekosher asil. When you make something, prepare something, food, you should not leave chametz there, which is going to be hard to take off. A chametz tamagum or chametz in a nook or cranny. Therefore, somebody who's looking at his favorite time that he eats, you know, Arukh HaShulchan say you don't have to check for him. Nachon, it's appropriate to prim erch yayin shlo yisherbo mashu chametz. They shouldn't send him a Pesach. 30 days before, you should not eat chametz over your svarim, etc. Somebody who's renting out a house to his friend, who has to check? Somebody who's renting out a house to his friend for Yudalid and onwards, he rented out to him before Yudalid. And the rent already acquired the rental with one of the ways by which it is acquired, by which rentals of land is acquired, by paying, or b'shtar, or a document, or chazaka, taking hold, or kinetzuda, or kine chalifin, for a tzah maskim rabais, and the landlord already left the house, but he still retains the keys. The renter did not enter the house until after Yudal began. Is when he received the keys. The obligation is on the person who's renting it out to check. Because the chametz is his. Abba Shapit don't even nullify it. He's not going to violate by Ira. But who lo yeh klab abayis kohen Pesach is not going to be here during Pesach because he rented it out. The gam kvar kenoel sochen also tenant has already acquired. Nevertheless, since the maskir had the keys at the beginning of the 14th night, V'gam ha'chametz shalom, the chametz also belongs to him. Chalav chayvus abdika, he has the obligation. B'dika v'lo nifka mimenu, it's not uprooted for him because so has socher achakach, when he allows the renter in afterwards. Afilu bo solayla, even on that self same night. V'abito gamkin chal alav. So the masker also has to do bittul. V'gam ha'sorah tzeish vatel, and the socher also has to do bittul, both the landlord and the tenant. Shem yimela b'vatel chemtzo gamkin. Because he has to be Mavato against his own chametz. So I guess it's also his bittul is also going on whatever residual chametz is left from the maskir. I mean, must have to but yom socher. I think it was given before nightfall to the tenant. Then the tenant has to check. Vivato gankin av sheina chametz shushon, and it's also being Mavato even though the chametz not his. You come nevertheless hamaskir shiyotza by the hifkiro. Even though even though the landlord certainly was mafkirat, he was mavato when he left. Here's why he should also be mavato and how he can also be mavato. Since the maskir was mavato chametz when he left, so technically this chametz now is hefker. So even though Socher would not want to acquire it, it's as if he acquired it by entering the house. So therefore, call vato. That's when he can vato it. That is when he acquired the rental, not bought the house, acquired the rental. Then he didn't acquire the rental. Lo mahari masho tachviro doesn't help that he's holding on to the key. Chalchiv ha'maskin, the obligation is on the landlord. So shivki maftechu bi'arachis is if he gave a key for safekeeping to somebody. The achiv ha'mafki, the obligation remains on the person who gave the key. V'lo nifka, not the person who took the key. Mr. Bura says that the Tais tells that no, giving the key already before you puts the obligation on the tenant. And some of the Achronim would say it's properly machmir and put the chibudika on both the tenant and the landlord. Pichosh says the primary opinion is the one which holds that the chib is on the landlord. Seems okay. There's a very long bracket here. Which is what the Mishnah just said, because he evidently quoted the Magen Avram. It's a vato gankin, and so that's bittul. Mikom never is masking to the vato, but the landlord also to bittul. Custom came match with taste seems to be that's what taste says. Thank shum hachacham yat taste this. Shum rejects the proof. Kumash custom hachok Yaakov. Mr. Bura says nevertheless the masker should be vato also. Okay, but in any event, the Makor Chaim asks. Because Makor Chaim still can give him the mizem mashma the chametz naseh shel asocher. Seeing that according to the slide, the chametz belongs down to the tenant. But unless his game belongs to the landlord. It's not the go though. The zesha Gemara, which says, "Oh, perhaps the tenant has to check these services because the prohibition is in his jurisdiction." Hachi perush doesn't mean to say the kana chametz. He times it. Chametz in this reason. Since the landlord made half kravuni, so I said ba'bayis, and he agreed. And the master agreed to take the house. He agreed to everything within it. So come on, it's Rashi, and show him it's Rashi means to say. It's some chametz. The chametz is not actually his. Maybe even does not even require it because it can leave that there. Come, nevertheless, mikri matzi biyatko. It's called matsui by Rabbi Matzei. It is prevalent in your hands. Or by Roya, and you violate by Roya. Ain't the inyan lemai. The meaning of Amos is kind. There's nothing to do with what we say. Schir rental is normally not a kin, and there's only that's only that the house should actually be like his. Avulizmano, but for the time that he has a lease, have a base, so it is his house. Karina Bay, lo yimatzei b'batechem, and therefore lo yimatzei also applies to the rented house. Base, this help in masket. That's if somebody is renting out a house. If somebody's selling a house, you give him he left the house on 13th and locked it up. Okay, and the buyer bought it with an absolute kinyan. Even though the mocher still has the key to the dollar. Nevertheless, the obligation is not on the seller. So he's no longer part of this house. Okay, and the buyer who owns the house has to do bdika when he gets the key. Me and my mocher he saw etzlam after kolab, but if the mocher left the key by him all night, pshita dok he's got to be the one doing the checking. Came shame because look at he kind of surprised because he's impeding the buyer from entering the house. So that's why people are told. And I don't think anybody structures the deal this way, so it doesn't really matter. Not to sell the entire house to a non-Jew because then you have no chiyuv bdika. But the sale that it's incorrect because the sale only takes place on the 14th. On the 14th in the day. I assume that's when most of the sales take place. Maybe some of them take a bit earlier because they're going to look at time zones. But anyway, so the chiyuv b'dika would be chal even before you would sell to goyis. I'm not sure that selling to non-Jew would make a difference. Later on, would make a difference in this respect.